Hola, we're going to talk to you about Don Quixote de la Mancha, as this is the introduction. You'll see the character Don Quixote on the screen here as a tall gentleman with the armor on. You may recognize this character from different things that you may have heard. And you may have even read the book, perhaps even read it in English. It is available, by the way. It's written in two parts, and the author is Miguel de Cervantes y Saavedra. And so we often just refer to him as Miguel de Cervantes or simply Cervantes. Parte 1, the first part was written in 1605, and part 2 was written in 1615. So altogether, and usually the two parts are published in the same volume, and it's simply called El Quijote. The person right next to Don Quixote in this slide here is Sancho Panza, his squire, su escudero. Don Quixote has this high ideal of himself, as we'll see. This is on the left is how he sees himself, and on the right is how he actually looks. Don Quixote is inspired quite a few things. Man of La Mancha, the musical, is directly from Don Quixote, and the motif of a tall character, a tall skinny character accompanied by a short round one is not unusual either. I wanted to talk about the title, especially in this introduction. And you'll get to know Don Quixote. I don't want to talk too much about it, but let me just start by introducing the title. The title here, this is what the original title was when it came out, when it was written in Spain in 1605. You can see the year there. So with the title there at the top, El Ingenioso Hidalgo Don Quijote de la Mancha, and you'll see Don Quixote written with the letter X here. In older Spanish, it would have been pronounced Quijote, but that X became a J in many words, and then it was pronounced Don Quixote. So, now El Ingenioso, it's often seen as something that means like ingenious, but really, in that time in Spain, it was seen as somebody who was just about half crazy. That could be a little bit inventive, but they seem to be a little bit something wrong with them. So we have that right at the beginning, right? And then the word Hidalgo. Hidalgo, it's from hijo de algo, okay, son of something. And of course, everybody's a son of something, but it meant some kind of nobility, right? Son of son of somebody with a title. But Hidalgo was the lower nobility, so it wasn't really anything special. But then we have Don Quixote. Don is a title. It is it's like sir in English. Where somebody's knighted, they become sir so and so. And Hidalgos were not, they did not have a right to that title, actually. So a Spaniard in this time period would immediately recognize there's something really weird about it. It's really a contradiction. You have Hidalgo, but that they take on the name of Don. Now we'll see in the book that his name actually wasn't Don Quixote. This was a name that this character creates for himself. So of course it's imaginative. This is how he sees himself. However, it's still funny to see Hidalgo with Don Quixote. And Quixote is also comical in many ways. Quixote, one thing is it's the piece of armor that covers the thigh. It's the thigh guard. And just being named after a thigh guard is really weird and funny. Like Sir Thigh Guard. Also, ote in Spanish generally is more kind of grotesque and kind of negative. Like grandote, it would be a big old thing or a big old person. Gordote is a fatso. Perrote is a big dog. And that's just kind of big and maybe not in a great way either. And so, you have the word ote at the end. It's just tends to be a little grotesque, but it's put right next to the word don, which is just a title of high nobility. So, you just see a lot of contradictions in the title itself here. Right? It does none of it makes sense. None of it should go together. Hidalgo shouldn't go with Don, and Don shouldn't go with Quixote either. Another thing is Quixote is supposed to be a variation of this character's last name, which in the novel you'll see that the author is supposed to be writing this story isn't really sure of his last name, which is another kind of a joke. But the last name is supposed to be Quijano or Quesada, and you don't use Don with a last name, right? And think of even the word Sir in English, the title. Use it with the first name, right? Sir John or something. But it would never be used with the last name. In Spanish, the same rules apply with Don Alonso, Don Carlos. And here we have Don Quixote. So again, with a Spanish speaker at the time would have recognized this as just the title itself is like a huge joke. And the last thing of all, the crowning joke of this is de La Mancha. Now, La Mancha is a real place in Spain. It's more in the little bit southern, kind of maybe south central part of Spain. And the higher up nobility were the higher up nobility would have been the other parts of Spain, not in La Mancha. La Mancha was not. It's kind of like a podunk part of Spain. It was not where you generally want to be, and so it's like Sir Thigard from the hood kind of thing. It's just why would he want to be from there? You're right. You can think of a city maybe near where you live that has that. It has that the distinction of being where you wouldn't want to live there or something like that, right? We've always heard of those kinds of things, and so this would be what La Mancha would be like. Not only that, but La Mancha itself just was not anything. It wasn't anything to write home about, so to speak, as a place itself. And then the other thing is La Mancha has a double meaning. Mancha also means stain, like a blemish. So it's like he's a stain on knighthood. He's a stain on chivalry, Don Quixote. right? Or he's Sir Thygard of the Stain, and he was not even supposed to be called Sir because he should not be carrying that title anyway. So the title itself is a big joke. Now, the great thing about Don Quixote is that it's most people call it the world's first novel. And the novel really came into being after Don Quixote. Miguel de Cervantes was not, nobody knew what a novel was at the time. And then this came out. And so you'll see some quite ingenious plots and a lot of comedy. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don Quixote thinks he just has this wild imagination, and it gets him in all sorts of trouble. And so you'll see a lot of that, but not all of it is slapstick, and not all of it is just funny. There's some fairly serious parts and interesting characters. And so I hope you join me and go through this book. Gracias.